Hey, space friends, this week I'm talking about sea snot. Yeah, you may already know I love deep sea exploration, and despite suffering from motion sickness, I went on a 3-week deep sea expedition a little while back on the exploration vessel Nautilus. I was able to actually participate in mission control and actually help everyone as we deployed 2 ROVs underwater to search for unusual life forms, which was so fantastic. Unusual life forms a lot of times appear to be weird to us because of how rare it is. But there's also a lot of unusual life out there that's weird to us, not because of how rare it is, but how difficult it is for us to see. That was actually one of the driving forces behind why I created lifeundertheice.org, so that we could become more familiar with all the tiny microscopic critters that surround us all the time, that appear weird to us, but we just don't see them. Well, the same is true for critters living under the ocean. And in fact, some of it's weird not because it's rare or even because they're microscopic, but because they're gloopy. And because they're gloopy, weird creatures, we can't see them that easily. Some of the most secretive life in the ocean is sea snot. These gloopy creatures that are living sometimes inside of mucus mansions of their own making. You're likely familiar with some of the most famous gelatinous creatures of the ocean, jellyfish, which are really awesome creatures, but let me introduce you to 4 other floofs of the sea. Siphonophores recently had their 15 minutes of fame, and you may have come across them when it was discovered that a 150-foot long one was just chilling off the coast of Australia. Another famous siphonophore is the Portuguese man-o-war, and a lot of times these get mistaken as jellyfish, but they're actually clusters of zooids coming together to collaborate. And even though they're individual zooids coming together, they can't actually survive independently. Other siphonophores resemble all sorts of things, from bags of mucus to feather boas to actually lupin flowers. There's so many beautiful arrays of them. Another snotty sea creature are pyrosomes, also nicknamed as sea pickles. They're like these giant, hollow pickles of mucus joining together thousands of cloned zooids in a bioluminescent sock in the ocean. Yeah, it's weird, but it's also really cool. Closely related to pyrosomes are salps, which are also nicknamed as jellyfish eggs. And even though they're nicknamed that, they're actually closer to us in evolution than they are to jellyfish, but they're still super weird. Salps might actually be the fastest growing multicellular animal on Earth, growing 10% of their body length every hour, which is just a lot to think about. But it's quite good for them because when there's an all-you-can-eat buffet in the form of an algal bloom, they can really grow in size quickly and chow down before anyone else can get there. To me, salps are kind of these just delightful mucusy creatures because they can also pump water through their entire body, and by doing that, they essentially create a jet where they can propel themselves around. Because of this, they sometimes also get nicknamed as sea squirts. But one of the most fascinating snotty sea creatures is the giant larvacean. The giant larvacean is actually only around a couple inches in size or so, but every day it blows out bubbles of snot from its head and forms a mucusy mansion around it. And this mucusy mansion helps protect it from predators and also help bring it food. This mucusy mansion is also sometimes referred to as a snot palace, perhaps because it's so complex. Like spider webs or beehives, there's actually a lot of complexity to the structure of these snot palaces. Tons of these giant larvaceans and their snot palaces exist, but because they're so incredibly delicate, they've been incredibly difficult to study. You can't really sample them without destroying them. All sorts of devices have been created to try and sample these gloopy creatures from the ocean, from claws to bags to boxes to suction tubes to pedal hands to spaghetti fingers, all with varying degrees of success. But a lot of the gloopy, snotty, mucusy creatures in the ocean are just too delicate and difficult to sample. And if you tried, what you would end up with at the surface is more akin to having like a bag of raw egg whites at the surface once you get it there, which is not really ideal. This is where lasers come in, because marine bioengineer Kakani Katija and a team of people worked together to actually create lasers that could scan things underwater, essentially creating a CT scanner for sea snot. The team took the instrument called Deep PIV to explore giant larvaceans in an undersea canyon. The result is absolutely beautiful and fascinating 3D scans of gooey, gloopy animals in motion that reveal their otherwise secret lives. 3D scanning creatures underwater has been a dream of marine biologists for a long time, and now that it's finally here, it opens up an entirely new window of exploration. Kakani believes that having 3D scans like this might also be really beneficial for helping us generate more biologically inspired designs, either here on Earth or even in outer space. Who knows, maybe mucus mansions might be all the rage on Mars one day. Thanks so much for tuning in this week, Space Friends. I hope you enjoyed. As always, I am putting links in the YouTube description below about more about this topic that you should definitely check out. Also, a shout out to some of the really awesome patrons that are helping create videos like this one. I really appreciate your support, and if you're not yet a patron, head on over to my Patreon campaign and you can get some cool stuff, geek out with me there, and you will know that your support is helping these videos keep going, which I really can't thank you enough. Otherwise, I'll see you all next week, and remember to always be exploring.